If you're just starting out with flash photography and you have a budget designated for some flash equipment and you were wondering if you should get a Speedlight or something stronger, then you've come to the right place because that's exactly what I wanted to go over in today's video. While there are some pretty significant benefits to going with a Speedlight, there's also some cons as well. And the same thing can actually be said for a much bigger strobe like this 600 watt Explore 600 Pro, also known as the Godox 8600 Pro. So in this video, I wanted to go over the pros and cons of both a big strobe and a Speedlight. Before I continue, I do want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Adorama. Adorama is an industry-leading retailer that has been serving photography, videography, and audio customers for almost 50 years now. Their motto is everyone is a creator, and they do their best to unleash that creator within us all by providing us with the tools and expertise necessary to get the job done. I personally shop at Adorama for both the great deals on products I use and recommend, but also the great customer service on those products as well. If you find yourself interested in any product that I talk about in today's video, check out the links that are going to be in the description area below and be sure to use those links if you decide to order. Like I said before, there's pros and cons to getting both a Speedlight and something else like a bigger strobe. There's pros and cons to both of those. So I wanted to start off with a Speedlight since that's typically what most photographers, including myself, recommend to people starting out with flash photography. Right off the bat, a Speedlight is going to be much more affordable than a bigger strobe, especially if you go with the ones that are around $50 to $60 like this Godox TT600 that I've made videos about before. To anyone starting off relatively small, stretching each dollar is going to be absolutely crucial. So if all you need is a flash that puts out light, then maybe a cheaper option like this Godox TT600 would be more than enough for you. One thing to consider though is that because a Speedlight is going to be more affordable than a stronger strobe, that usually means that it's not going to be as strong as those bigger strobes out there on the market. While a Speedlight has around 60 watts of power, there are going to be bigger strobes out there like the Explore 600 Pro that are 600 watts, which is 10 times the power. It's generally a safe bet to assume that with the bigger, more expensive options out there, you are going to get more power in that light. And with the more affordable options, you're going to have to sacrifice some of that light for a better price. However, there are a few exceptions out there, which is why I'm always open to answering questions you guys send me in messages. Another benefit to Speedlights is that they can be mounted onto your camera, which is very helpful for event photography when you might not still fully understand how to use your light off camera and you just need to light your subject with direct flash. Although I'm personally not a fan of direct flash, it's better to have any sort of flash at all in low light conditions than no flash at all. The recycle time of a flash is going to be how long it takes to charge up and get ready to fire again after you just took a shot. At full power, your flash is going to take longer to recycle than at lower outputs like half power, 1/4 power, or lower. As I mentioned before, a Speedlight is around 60 watts of power, and if you needed to use all 60 watts of power in your photos, which again is going to be full power, then you would need to wait until the flash recycled again before you could take another shot and have the flash show up in your images. Depending on the model of your Speedlight, the flash recycle time could be a few seconds or as fast as 1 second. The reason why I wanted to describe what recycle times were and the reason why recycle times are on my list of cons for a Speedlight is because even though 1 second at full power is pretty fast for a Speedlight, let's just say that you were photographing something very fast and you needed multiple photos in that 1 second. This just wouldn't be possible with a Speedlight that has a recycle time of 1 second. You would need to wait that full second before you could take another flash and have that flash show up in your images. In order to get faster recycle times with that flash, you would need to go at lower outputs and adjust your settings to get those faster recycle times. One of the biggest reasons why some photographers use Speedlights is the smaller size and weight. And even though there are some stronger comparable strobes out there like the Evolve 200, which is almost the size of a Speedlight, also known as the Godox 8200 by the way, the Speedlights do still have the edge on being smaller and weighing less. The only exception to that statement would probably be the Explore 100 Pro, also known as the Godox 8100 Pro, that I typically use whenever I travel. But that Explore 100 Pro is still going to be more expensive than a Speedlight. If you intend to make this first lighting purchase something to really learn from, it could be argued that having a modeling light will really help you out with that. A modeling light is an additional constant light source on a Speedlight or strobe that gives you a preview of how the flash will look like before you even take a photo. The reason why I have modeling lights as a con for Speedlights is because usually Speedlights don't have a modeling lamp feature, and if they do have that feature, it's on the more expensive ones. And even on those more expensive ones, the modeling lamp is going to be very low in output and pretty much unusable unless you're shooting in very low light conditions. The very last thing that I wanted to add to both the pros and cons list for Speedlights is the fact that some of them use AA batteries. The reason why it's both on the pros and the cons list is that because some photographers do actually like AA batteries because they can be found at local gas stations and local stores like Dollar General or Family Dollar, and in case their power goes out in their Speedlight and they need another fresh pair of batteries in case for some reason they don't have spares on them, they can just go to those local stores and get spares there. Other photographers like myself don't like AA batteries because they don't hold as much power as lithium-ion battery powered Speedlights. I found it reasonable to add AA batteries to the pros list because how readily they are available in case you need to find a spare in an emergency, but I definitely had to add it to the cons list as well because they don't hold as much charge as those lithium-ion battery powered Speedlights. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please consider giving the video a like right now or at the end after you're done watching it, because liking this video helps push it further into the algorithm, and my whole purpose for making these videos is to help you guys. Now that we're done with the pros and cons for a Speedlight, we can move on to the pros and cons for a strobe like this big Explorer 600 Pro that I mentioned earlier, also known as the Godox 8600 Pro. There's definitely some pros and cons to this, but the biggest pro that I can mention is how much more power it has with 600 watts of power, which is 10 times more power than a Speedlight has. More power in a light is going to be more beneficial to you in case you work in any sort of bright conditions like I do here in Texas. There's a saying out there when it comes to power output that goes something like, it's better to have more power and need less than to have less power and need more, and I generally agree with that. Something else that's very obvious that can easily add to the cons list for strobes is how bigger and heavier they are compared to Speedlights. If portability is something important to you at all, then it might not be ideal to go for a big and heavy strobe. Over the past couple of years, I've started going for my medium to smaller size strobes more than anything, which is very different than how I used to shoot in 2016 when I used to take my big 600 watt Explorer 600 with me everywhere. Speedlights fit nicer into a camera bag, especially since the heads can tilt and they don't weigh as much as bigger, heavier strobes, which is why I had to add the size and the weight of a strobe to the cons list. Remember earlier in the video when I told you guys about recycle times? Well, that's actually going to be a huge pro for bigger strobes. In the example that I mentioned earlier, I told you to imagine that you needed all 60 watts of power in a Speedlight to take photos of something very fast. And because the Speedlight that I mentioned didn't have a faster recycle time than 1 second, you'd have to wait a second before taking another photo of that fast moving subject, and you would be missing out on multiple photos within that second. Well, if you had a bigger, stronger strobe, like a 600 watt strobe, and you just reduce the power of that strobe to 1/10, which equals the 60 watts of power that you needed for that fast moving subject, you would experience a much faster recycle time and you'd be able to take photos with the flash firing for multiple photos in 1 second. And again, this is something that wouldn't be possible with that weaker Speedlight. Another easy addition to the cons list for strobes is going to be the price of strobes. At normal price, that Explorer 600 Pro that I mentioned earlier is actually going to be 10 times the price of my cheapest Speedlight, which is that Godox TC600 that I showed you earlier. While there are other variables to consider, it's usually a safe bet to say that a more expensive light is going to have more power than a more affordable, weaker one. Lights can definitely get expensive, and that's exactly why I tend to share lighting deals on both my Instagram and my Facebook lighting group whenever those deals happen. Being able to see how the light looks like on your subject without even taking a photo using the modeling light feature is such a handy feature to have that I definitely had to add it to the list of pros for strobes. Even if you don't intend to do studio work, which is exactly why the modeling light feature was created, you could definitely make use of the modeling light at night photo shoots, which is what I've done many times before. The modeling light feature can also be used for some really nice behind the scenes because everyone watching the video can see how nice the light looks like on your subject while you're taking your photos. The last con that I have for strobes is that they can't be mounted on camera and are pretty much designed to be used off camera. At events like a wedding, for example, it's very common practice to use several different lights around the reception area, and although that is pretty nice, it's something that could lead to different mistakes that could happen, so it's not always bulletproof. A kid or somebody could knock one of the lights over, one of your lights could die, or there could be some technical issues like your flash not communicating with your transmitter for some reason, and having a light on camera is going to be something that's a safer bet for events, especially if it's something that you can't replicate again, like a wedding. If you're considering getting a light that's a good mixture of strobes and Speedlights, then I highly recommend this light right here, the Godox 8200, also known as the Evolve 200. It's not that much bigger or heavier than a Speedlight, yet has triple the power. It uses a lithium-ion battery, which allows for fast recycle times, and it has a lot of different attachments for it that can allow you to alter the 200 into exactly how you want it to be. If you guys are interested in seeing an updated review on this light, then I can definitely make one for you, but I actually do already have one. It's a few years old, I think 5 years old now, but it's there. And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope it helped you out in your decision making on whether if you want to get a Speedlight or strobe, or something in the middle like that 200. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section below and I'll reply as soon as possible. I want to give one last thanks to Adorama for sponsoring this video, because doing so allows me to keep making free content for you guys, so definitely check them out. Take care, and I'll see you in the very next video.